The internet did not expect this. 1 minute, hip-hop was calm, quiet even, recovering from the storm Kendrick Lamar unleashed in his last musical run. And the next minute, Jim Jones jumped online and fired off a diss so random, so unnecessary, and so painfully desperate that the entire rap world stopped and stared like, "Bro, what are you doing?" This wasn't a playful jab. This wasn't a light comment. This wasn't even a strategic move. This was Jim Jones taking a wild, though confused swing at Kendrick Lamar, and missing so badly that fans said it felt like watching someone throw a punch underwater. In the leaked clip that's now everywhere, Jim Jones can be seen pacing, ranting, reaching for points that don't land, and trying to paint Kendrick Lamar as overrated, irrelevant, or not that guy. The problem? Every point blew up in his face. Hip-hop fans instantly flooded the comments, calling the rant embarrassing, out of touch, and the biggest self-destruction attempt since, well, the last time an old-school rapper tried Kendrick. But here's the part that made the internet go insane. Sources close to Jim Jones claim he wasn't just speaking his mind. He was trying to respond to something Kendrick allegedly said behind the scenes. A comment that apparently hit Jim so hard, he lost control and fired off the worst diss of his career. And the way Kendrick's team reacted? Cold, silent, calculated. Like they knew Jim Jones had just dug his own grave. But the shocking twist? Insiders say Jim might have accidentally exposed a private beef that Kendrick never wanted public. And now? The entire hip-hop world is preparing for a war Jim Jones doesn't have the artillery for. Long before Jim Jones went off on Kendrick Lamar like a man swinging wildly in the dark, this tension had been brewing quietly. Beneath interviews, beneath industry politics, beneath ego, pride, known in the generational gap that has split hip-hop down the center. Jim Jones comes from an era where respect was earned through physical presence, street credibility, and longevity. Kendrick Lamar comes from a world where respect is earned through penmanship sharp enough to cut steel, strategy calculated like chess, and every move polished to perfection. These two lanes were never supposed to collide. But they did, and the collision was inevitable. For years, Jim Jones watched Kendrick Lamar rise. Not slowly, not steadily, but explosively. Every Kendrick album rewrote hip-hop rules. Every lyric decoded political and cultural trauma. Every performance sparked conversations that academics, politicians, and journalists dissected. Kendrick didn't just rap, he led revolutions. Meanwhile, Jim Jones had been fighting for recognition as more than a hype man, more than a street rapper, more than a relic of the Dipset era. And while he carved out success in his own lane, he felt overlooked in mainstream conversations, left out of greatest lists, ignored in lyrical debates, treated like hip-hop furniture, present, respected, but rarely spotlighted. So when Kendrick became the face of lyrical supremacy, something in Jim started to shift. It wasn't jealousy, not at first. It was insecurity masked as critique. Interviews started containing slight digs. "He's cool, but he ain't like that. He ain't no street dude. I don't hear no impact like that from the people I know." These comments sounded small at the time, background noise in the endless chatter of hip-hop. But insiders say Kendrick's camp noticed. They just didn't care. Kendrick was too focused on artistry, activism, and life. Jim Jones wasn't on his radar. But then came the moment that changed everything. A private listening session. A room filled with executives, producers, writers, influencers. Kendrick played an unreleased record, heavy, sharp, layered with metaphors that left the room frozen. Someone in the room, an industry rep connected to Jim Jones, leaned over and whispered jokingly, "Damn, Jim Jones could never." People laughed. Too loudly. Too long. Jim wasn't there. But the comment traveled straight to him that same night. And when he heard it, something snapped. Because that wasn't strangers comparing one artist to another. When that wasn't online fans dragging him, that wasn't critics writing an article. This was someone in the industry, someone from the same rooms Jim wanted to be in, laughing at him behind his back, using Kendrick's name to do it. From that moment, Jim Jones had Kendrick on the brain. Not in admiration, not in analysis, in resentment. In interviews, Jim's tone shifted from dismissive to irritated, from irritated to bitter, from bitter to outright disrespectful. I don't care about no Kendrick. He ain't moving the streets. Nobody I know plays him like that. Fans brushed it off at first, but people close to Jim noticed the truth. Jim felt threatened, not physically, not professionally, but existentially. Hip-hop had moved on, the torch had passed, and Jim Jones wasn't part of that passing. What made it worse? Kendrick never responded. Not once. Not even indirectly. To someone like Jim, someone who came up on battlefield rap, being ignored is the ultimate disrespect. Then came the Drake versus Kendrick war. When Kendrick dropped his nuclear bars, shaking the entire music industry, Jim Jones saw something he couldn't unsee. A younger generation worshiping a man he didn't believe deserved it. And Jim made the mistake that changed everything. He mocked Kendrick's win, mocked his bars, mocked the hype, claimed Kendrick wasn't real enough to win anything. See, Kendrick's fans came for him immediately, flooding his comments with clown emojis, quotes, comparisons, memes, and full dissertations breaking down why Kendrick lyrically outclasses 90% of the industry, including Jim. Jim felt attacked, ridiculed, cornered, and cornered men lash out. So he did the worst thing possible. He took to social media, hit record, and unleashed a rant so bitter, so emotional, so chaotic that even Dipset fans winced. He tried to downplay Kendrick, tried to diminish the impact of his music, tried to present himself as the keeper of real hip-hop. But instead of looking authoritative, he looked insecure, lost, detached from reality. The internet tore it apart. Jim sounding like a hater. He jealous because Kendrick didn't respond. This is embarrassing behavior. Bro mad because Kendrick ain't thinking about him. Comment after comment, video after video, meme after meme. Jim Jones became the punchline of his own rant. But what the internet didn't know is that Jim wasn't ranting because of fan pressure. He was ranting because of something much deeper. A private conversation Kendrick had about him. A conversation Jim was never supposed to hear. A conversation that hit him harder than any diss track. Because Kendrick didn't just critique Jim. He exposed a truth Jim had been avoiding for years. And that truth, that's the twist coming next. A twist that reveals exactly why Jim Jones went off like a man losing control. And why he might have just ended his own career in the process. The moment the truth leaked about what really triggered Jim Jones' meltdown, the entire internet gasped. Because this wasn't just ego, insecurity, or generational frustration. It wasn't just Jim being emotional, petty, or desperate for attention. No. This was something much deeper. Something personal. Something that cut straight into Jim's pride, legacy, and the identity he spent decades building. The leak came from someone inside a private, invitation-only studio session where Kendrick Lamar was reportedly reviewing beats and lyrical concepts for a new project. The environment was intimate. Legendary producers, A-list engineers, top-tier writers, and industry veterans who have known Kendrick for years. The type of room where secrets stay locked, unless someone feels the need to settle a score. During a casual conversation, if the topic of old head criticism came up, rappers from earlier eras discrediting newer artists. Kendrick chuckled, brushed it off, but then, according to this insider, he said one sentence that set the entire hip-hop world on fire. Not loud, not arrogant, not emotional, just factual. Kings don't argue with pawns. That line alone sent the room into a freeze. Everyone knew exactly who he meant. Because Kendrick wasn't vague. He wasn't speaking generally. He was speaking directly about Jim Jones. The insider said Kendrick wasn't angry. He wasn't even dismissive. He sounded like someone diagnosing a problem with zero emotion attached. The type of tone that hurts worse than a diss track, because it tells you the other person isn't even worth the energy of a rhyme. Someone in the room asked Kendrick what he meant, and Kendrick reportedly elaborated with a quiet, surgical precision. Some people talk loud because silence would expose how small their voice really is. Another dagger. Another reference to Jim's pattern of shouting for relevance. But then Kendrick delivered the line that truly detonated Jim's ego. Any man who built his name off someone else's shine can't question mine. The room fell silent. Everyone knew what he meant. Jim Jones built his identity during Dipset's rise. But he wasn't Cameron. He wasn't the lyricist. He wasn't the star. He was the energy, the hype, the presence, but not the pen. Kendrick was saying, without saying, "You can't critique me when you never built anything on your own." This was the quote that reached Jim Jones. Not through media, not through blogs, but through someone he trusted. Someone sat Jim down and repeated Kendrick's words word for word. Kings don't argue with pawns. Silence exposes small voices. He built his name off someone else's shine. Jim felt humiliated, disrespected, invalidated. To a man like Jim, who spent decades fighting for relevance, clawing for respect, struggling to be taken seriously outside Dipset, this wasn't just a critique. It was a spiritual wound. This wasn't Kendrick calling him trash. This was Kendrick calling him insignificant. And nothing enrages an insecure man more than being told he doesn't matter. Sources say Jim tried to brush it off at first, but he couldn't sleep. He spent days replaying the quotes in his head. He vented to friends. He ranted in private studios. He dwelled on it until anger turned into obsession. He started watching Kendrick interviews, watching Kendrick performances, watching Kendrick's numbers, watching reactions to Kendrick's battle with Drake. Everywhere he looked, Kendrick was being praised as a generational icon, a lyrical genius, a once-in-a-decade voice. And everywhere Jim looked for validation, he found memes dragging him, calling him irrelevant, calling him jealous, calling him old-school noise. He spiraled. People close to him say Jim started talking about Kendrick constantly, unprovoked, unexpectedly, emotionally. He ain't that great. People only hype him because he weird. He don't represent the real. But none of these points landed because deep down, Jim knew the truth. Kendrick earned his position. Kendrick built his legacy solo. Kendrick didn't need cosigns, controversy, or a crew. Kendrick's pen was enough, and Jim couldn't compete with that. Then the worst thing possible happened. Kendrick's comment leaked to the public. It started as a whisper on Twitter. Kendrick called Jim a pawn. Then the whisper turned into a flame. Then a wildfire. Blog pages posted it. YouTubers reacted to it. Hip-hop forums turned it into a headline. Kendrick Lamar says he won't argue with pawns. Direct shot at Jim Jones. Fans ate it up. Meme pages went crazy. Everywhere Jim looked online, he saw the same joke repeated. You a pawn, respectfully. He tried ignoring it. He tried blocking comments. He tried denying it. But every denial made it worse. Every reaction fed the fire. Every attempt to stay calm shattered under the weight of humiliation. And that humiliation? It grew into rage. That's why Jim recorded the infamous rant. He wasn't thinking logically. He wasn't strategizing. He wasn't protecting his legacy. He was lashing out. A man drowning. Ice grabbing anything to pull himself back to the surface. But here's where the first major twist hits. The rant wasn't the whole diss. It wasn't even the worst part. There was another recording. A private one. A more intense one. A version so hostile, so unfiltered, so explosive. Jim's team begged him not to release it. He recorded it the same night, but he never posted it. His team leaked the audio internally, and insiders say it was so disrespectful, so reckless, so dangerously targeted, that if Kendrick heard it, the entire hip-hop world would erupt. And the twist? Someone has that audio. Someone is planning to leak it. Someone connected to Jim's own circle. A betrayal brewing inside Dipset itself. The audio includes direct shots at Kendrick's family, references to his personal life, even accusations that could ignite a feud with irreversible consequences. That file is sitting in someone's phone right now, waiting for the moment the conflict escalates, waiting for the perfect storm, waiting for maximum damage. Because the person planning to leak it isn't an enemy. It's someone who wants to end Jim Jones's career from the inside. The deeper the industry dug into Jim Jones's outburst, the darker the truth became. What the public thought was just a bitter rant from an aging rapper was actually the beginning of a full-blown implosion happening inside Jim's own circle. Because the unreleased audio, the one Jim recorded in anger, the one twice as disrespectful as the rant that went public, wasn't just real. It was damaging, not career-threatening, career-ending. In the unreleased recording, Jim didn't just insult Kendrick Lamar's music. He attacked his integrity, his family, his entire legacy. And worst of all, he said things that violated rules even the most cutthroat rappers never break. There were accusations, bold ones, personal ones, the ones that could ignite feuds so dangerous that even Dipset OGs refused to touch them. Jim thought the recording was deleted. He thought it was contained. He thought only his inner circle knew about it. But that assumption was his downfall. Because someone inside that circle, the same circle he thought was protecting him, had a copy. And not only did they have it, they were planning to leak it. The question: who would want to destroy Jim Jones from the inside? The answer didn't come from a public tweet or an inside source. It came from a text message. A screenshot leaked by an anonymous burner account that sent shockwaves across the hip-hop world. The message thread showed a conversation between two unnamed individuals, but the context made everything crystal clear. One person wrote, "It's time. He crossed too many people. I'm dropping the file tonight. Let the world see who he really is." The second person replied, "You sure? And this ends everything for him." That's the point. Fans immediately began speculating. Who hated Jim enough to ruin him permanently? Was it a rival? A former friend? A business partner? But then came the shocker. In the same screenshot, another line appeared. One that revealed the motive. He'd been disrespecting us for years behind closed doors. This for all the times he tried to play me. Us. Plural. Meaning more than one person inside Jim's own team wanted to take him down. And this wasn't betrayal. This was mutiny. And the leader of that mutiny? Someone fans never expected. Someone who had been standing beside Jim Jones for years. Someone who appeared in videos, shows, podcasts, live streams. Someone who always defended Jim publicly. Someone who fans assumed was his brother in arms. It was none other than Freaky Zeke, the Dipset brother, the day one, the comedian, the loyal one. The man fans thought would take a bullet for Jim. The industry froze, and fans refused to believe it at first. But then a second screenshot leaked. This time, from someone who claimed to be part of Zeke's extended crew. The screenshot showed a list of audio files stored on a cloud account. One was labeled JJ_K._unreleased.mp3. And beneath it, Final Cut, do not delete. The internet erupted. Because not only did Zeke have the recording, he was editing it, preparing it, polishing it, making it ready for release. And if that wasn't shocking enough, another leak surfaced. This time a voice note from Zeke himself, speaking with someone he clearly trusted. His words? I'm tired of cleaning up his messes, tired of defending him, tired of him thinking he untouchable. This time I'm letting him deal with what he created. The audio sent goosebumps through the hip-hop community. Why now? Why Kendrick? Why leak something that could destroy Dipset's legacy? And the answer came from a source who claimed Zeke had been pushed to the edge by years of disrespect, moments the public never saw. Private arguments, missed payments, broken promises, ego battles, credit disputes. Jim reportedly dismissed Zeke in front of labels, cut him out of business deals, used him as a punching bag during heated discussions. Zeke had tolerated it, until Kendrick. Because when the world started laughing at Jim, Jim started lashing out at his own people. And Zeke told a friend. He blamed US for letting the Kendrick rumor spread. He said I made him look weak. He said I ain't loyal. A man can only take so much. The betrayal wasn't sudden. It was the boiling point. But Zeke wasn't acting alone. There was someone else involved. Someone even closer to Jim. Someone with more to gain. Someone who had access to everything. Personal files, private conversations, unreleased tracks, business agreements. The leaks revealed a second mole. A member of Jim's own management team. A man named Malik, the one responsible for handling Jim's social media, scheduling interviews, approving appearances, and managing content. And Malik's motive? Money. According to the leaks, Malik had already met twice with a major media outlet, one known for dropping exclusive celebrity scandals. He wasn't selling the audio privately. He was negotiating a distribution deal, a paid leak. Which means the unreleased diss wasn't going to accidentally leak online. It wasn't going to surface in a group chat. It wasn't going to emerge as a rumor. It was going to drop publicly, professionally, strategically, for maximum impact. A full media rollout. Interviews, reaction videos, promotion, headlines. Jim wasn't just being betrayed. He was being invaded from every direction. And in the midst of this chaos, Kendrick's team remained silent. Not a word, not a hint, not a whisper. Their silence was loud. It felt like they knew the bomb was coming, like they were waiting for the recording to drop, like they had already prepared their countermove. Because when the truth finally surfaces, Kendrick doesn't just respond, he retaliates. And the retaliation isn't lyrical, it's personal. The moment rumors spread that Freaky Zeke and Malik were plotting to leak Jim Jones' unreleased anti-Kendrick audio, the hip-hop world exploded. It wasn't just fans reacting anymore. The industry froze. Bloggers scrambled. Rappers quietly picked sides. And social media platforms lit up like wildfire, each post more chaotic than the last. At first, fans refused to believe it. Zeke would never do Jim like this. This gotta be fake. They've been brothers for years. But when more screenshots dropped, when voice notes surfaced, when Malik's name entered the conversation, everything changed. And suddenly people weren't asking if Zeke was disloyal. They were asking why he waited this long. One comment went viral instantly. Jim really had 2 ops in his own house and couldn't see it? Thousands agreed. Because looking back, fans began noticing moments that now felt like early signs. Times Zeke looked annoyed sitting next to Jim in interviews. Times Malik spoke over Jim in live streams. Times Jim took credit for things other members of Dipset built. Or times Jim humiliated or dismissed his team publicly. People started connecting dots that felt obvious in hindsight. But the reactions from other artists were even more explosive. One legendary East Coast rapper tweeted, "When your own crew load the gun, don't blame the op who pulled the trigger." Another added, "Disloyalty don't happen overnight. It's slow, quiet, grows in the dark." Subtweets flew everywhere. Some from Dipset members, some from Kendrick-affiliated producers, and some from rappers who had personal history with Jim. Cameron posted a single GIF of a man shaking his head with the caption, "I tried to tell y'all." Fans went crazy. Cam knows something, drop the T. This is Dipset Civil War. Cam Loki been done with Jim for years. But the loudest reactions came from Kendrick fans. And they were merciless. Jim picked a fight with the wrong one. Kendrick living rent-free in bro's whole existence. Kendrick didn't even diss him and Jim already done. How you get checkmated by a dude who ain't even playing the game? Memes circulated everywhere. Kendrick calmly sipping tea while Dipset burns in the background. Jim Jones pressing the self-destruct button. Zeke and Malik passing the USB like villains in a movie. Even mainstream news outlets picked it up. Internal mutiny in Dipset. Jim Jones facing betrayal from his own team. Unreleased Kendrick diss could threaten Jim Jones' career. Kendrick remains silent amid Dipset turmoil, fans anticipating response. But the silence from Kendrick's camp, that's what terrified people most. Because Kendrick is not the type to speak prematurely. He observes, calculates, strikes with precision. A single message from his label rep sent chills through the industry. Kendrick is aware. Yeah, he's preparing. Preparing. 2 words. And hip-hop went into full meltdown. Because Kendrick preparing doesn't mean a diss track. It means something sharper, cleaner, more devastating. And then something unexpected happened. A small portion of fans began defending Jim Jones. Not because they supported his rant, not because they agreed with him, but because they believed he was being sabotaged. Look at the timing. Someone want him ruined. Zeke leaking things? Malik negotiating deals? Yes, this ain't normal beef. This is a setup. Suddenly conspiracies flooded timelines. Is Cameron behind the leak? Is this a label move to get Jim out the way? Did someone pay Malik for the audio? Is Kendrick's team orchestrating the collapse? But then the story took an even darker turn. An anonymous industry insider tweeted, "Y'all don't even know the worst part yet. Malik wasn't working alone. Someone else wants Jim finished." That message got 50,000 retweets in hours. And because everyone wanted to know, who else was involved? And what did they stand to gain? As the narrative spiraled, so did the stakes. Reaction channels dug deep. TikTok detectives analyzed patterns in Dipset interviews. Reddit threads built entire timelines of Jim's feuds, betrayals, and internal tensions. Everyone wanted answers. Everyone expected Kendrick to drop a track in response. Everyone speculated about a Dipset implosion. Then a third leak surfaced. A blurry photo, Malik in a studio, talking to a man whose face was half hidden. But fans recognized him immediately. It was one of Kendrick Lamar's producers. The internet collapsed. Nah, this is a setup. Kendrick about to end him cleanly. Bro fighting ghosts and his own friends? This isn't a beef, it's an execution. Rumors flew that Kendrick's team wasn't just aware of the recording. They were helping prepare its release. Because if they didn't have to diss Jim directly, if the audio leaked itself, Kendrick could maintain moral high ground while Jim fell apart publicly. Strategic. Cold. Perfect. But the biggest twist came from Dipset fans themselves. During a live stream, Zeke accidentally slipped and said, "People think Jim loyal, but they don't know what he did behind the scenes. That audio dropping one way or another." The chat exploded. Ned, what did Jim do? What is Zeke hiding? Why is he this angry? Even Cameron silently logged into the comments, dropped a single, then left. Thousands screenshot it instantly. Something major had gone on behind the scenes. Something that broke Dipset's bond. Something that turned Zeke from loyal right-hand man into a man ready to destroy Jim Jones publicly. And that something was about to surface. The truth behind Jim Jones' downfall didn't explode all at once. It cracked open slowly, leaks, screenshots, whispers, until finally, everything burst wide open in a way that left the entire hip-hop world stunned. Because the real reason Freaky Zeke and Malik turned against Jim wasn't jealousy. It wasn't money. It wasn't even disrespect from Kendrick Lamar. It was something Jim did. Something that cut so deep, so personal, so irreversible, that the men closest to him decided they would rather end his career than protect him for one more day. And it started with a document. A private, confidential business paper that was never supposed to see the light of day. A contract, signed years ago, detailing how Dipset profits were divided behind closed doors. But the division wasn't equal. It wasn't fair. It wasn't even close. Jim Jones had quietly rewritten the percentages. For years, a leak from an anonymous ex-employee revealed the truth. Jim had been taking double the percentage he publicly claimed. Cameron had been getting his cut. But Zeke and Malik? They were being paid crumbs. Not only crumbs, they were being paid late. Underpaid, undercredited, underrespected. And the worst part? Jim told the world they were family. Meanwhile, he treated them like disposable background pieces. The leaked contract hit social media like a nuclear bomb. Fans weren't just shocked, they were outraged. He was stealing from his own people? No wonder Zeke's snapping. This ain't betrayal. This revenge. But the contract was only the first layer. A second document leaked. An internal Dipset group message from last year where Jim told Malik, "You work for me. Don't ever think you deserve what I deserve." That message, cold, dismissive, arrogant, ignited a rage Malik had held back for years. And suddenly everything made sense. Malik wasn't leaking the audio to spite Jim. He was leaking it to expose him, to burn down the empire Jim built on their backs. But then came the twist that flipped the narrative upside down. Again, the man Malik was meeting with in the studio, the one fans recognized as a Kendrick-affiliated producer, he wasn't there to help Malik. He was there to warn him. A leaked audio clip captured their conversation. Producer: "If you drop that recording, it's not Kendrick you need to worry about." Malik: "Then who?" Producer: "Jim's enemies. They've been waiting years for a reason." That line sent chills across the internet. Jim Jones didn't just have tension with Kendrick. He had old enemies. Real enemies. People who had been waiting for his empire to crack so they could finish what they started decades ago. The producer continued, "If this audio hits the public, Jim's not the only one going down. You are exposing yourself too." Malik stayed silent for a long time, and then whispered, "I already crossed the point of no return." That was it. That was the moment everything changed. Because now the hip-hop world understood. The leak wasn't just a betrayal. It was a death sentence. Not literally, but reputationally, financially, socially, musically. And Jim knew it, which is why, according to insiders, he went completely off the grid. But the most shocking reveal came hours later, when a third anonymous insider dropped a clip that no one expected. Not Malik, not Zeke, not Kendrick's team. It was a video, shaky, dimly lit, showing Jim Jones in a private meeting with a man whose face was blurred. The audio, however, was crystal clear. Jim whispered, "If that audio leaks, I'm finished. So we take care of the leak before the leak takes care of me." Fans lost their minds. Jim was planning retaliation. Jim wasn't scared. He was angry, ready to silence Zeke, ready to silence Malik, ready to fight back. But the blurred-out man's response? And that's what chilled everyone to the core. "It's too late. They're not scared of you anymore." The internet erupted. Who was that? How big is this plot? Is Jim about to go to war with his own crew? And then, the final, most terrifying twist of all. Another leak dropped. A teaser. 5 seconds long. A hand plugging a USB drive into a laptop. A folder opening. On a file highlighted JJ_K_unreleased.mp3. And a voice, Zeke's voice, saying, "Tomorrow, the world hears everything." Cut to black. Jim Jones has 24 hours. 24 hours before the diss leaks. 24 hours before his legacy collapses. 24 hours before Kendrick Lamar hears the most disrespectful words ever spoken about him. And the cliffhanger? Kendrick finally broke his silence. He tweeted one word. Ready? And now you understand why the entire hip-hop world is on edge. This isn't just a rap beef anymore. This isn't just Jim Jones ranting for attention or Kendrick Lamar brushing off another critic. This is a full-scale implosion, an internal betrayal, a financial scandal, an unreleased diss strong enough to end a career, and a countdown that's already ticking with no signs of slowing down. Zeke has the file. Malik has the motive. Kendrick's team is watching in silence. And Jim Jones? He's running out of time, running out of allies, and running out of options. So here's where you step in. Do you think the unreleased audio should drop? Do you think Jim Jones deserves the fallout that's coming? Is Kendrick going to respond? Or is he going to let Jim destroy himself? Is Dipset finished? And most importantly, who was the blurred-out man Jim met with? Drop your theories in the comments right now. Your guesses, your breakdowns, your predictions, they fuel this investigation. Every time y'all analyze a leak or catch a detail the blogs missed, the story gets even crazier. If this deep dive had you glued to the screen, if any twist made you sit up like, nah, no way. If you're waiting for that audio file like the rest of the world, then hit that like button right now. It pushes this video into the algorithm and lets me know you're locked in for every update. And make sure you're subscribed with notifications on, because listen, the next 24 hours could change everything. If that diss drops, if Zeke presses upload, if Jim retaliates, if Kendrick responds, we'll be here breaking it all down, piece by piece, leak by leak, twist by twist. Stay alert, stay ready. Because this story, it's not ending, it's escalating.